Hiya, it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and today I have a Christmas bulk make, batch make cards for you using these lovely Hunkydory Moonstone dies. Now, you may remember earlier in the year when I was doing a project for them as a design team member. I'm still a design team member, but this isn't a project that I'm doing as a design team member. This is kind of just one of my own. But they were doing these lovely big sentiment dies with stamps that complemented those. And they then, I noticed just recently, had bought out a Christmas set of the same sort of thing. So I actually purchased those because I really, really liked the large sentiment dies. I don't know what it is about large sentiments I really like. So these are Christmas ones. So I thought we would do a whole batch of cards using these sentiment dies and stamps. So I hope you enjoy. Let's get crafting. So the first thing I'm going to do is stamp this dashing through. This is one of the only ones that I want on a separate piece of card, the stamp sentiment, and that's because I'm actually going to cut it out as a little flag. So I'm mixing things up a little bit here because I've got Stampin' Up card, I've got Stampin' Up ink, but I've obviously got Hunkydory dies and stuff, and I've also got Anna Griffin card bases. So what I'm doing is prepping for all my die cutting. So obviously that's why I'm stamping this bit only. Then what I did was I cut out the bits of card that went with the card bases that you can see there. So I've got that lovely green to go with the green card base, etc. So this gold to go with the gold of the card, and then I'm cutting out all my sentiments. Now I'm doing 2 of each. So I'm doing 2 Christmas in this case, but I'm not going to show you 2 of each because that would be really boring. So I'm just going to show you the ones I'm cutting out. So that was Christmas. This is Merry in that lovely limey green. Again, as always, I will put all the details of exactly the card used and the colours and everything all on the blog post. To find the blog post, if you're on YouTube, just go to the paragraph below this video, click where it says show more. It opens it all up and you'll see a link to the blog post there. So then it will have at the bottom of that a list with links, if possible, to the products used. Okay, so then you'll see the next one is this lovely Joy. I love that colour, obviously. And then we've got Believe. This is done in silver. And this is like a matte kind of textured silver, and the same for the gold. I really love that. This is a Create and Craft card, and I don't know if they do it anymore. And by the way, don't forget to watch out, as I pointed out there, the little dot over the eye. Make sure you keep that because I lost it almost on the first one I cut out. So then for this one, this is the one that I did the stamping for, that has the little flag. I also wanted on this one, was the only one that I did some matte and layering on. So I've got this beautiful silver card. So I've put on the larger of the 2 rectangles that I picked and cut that out, and then I've also cut out my sentiment also in that lovely silver, and in this instance it's snow. Obviously it had to be snow with this beautiful silver, didn't it? And obviously again with this I do this twice, so 2 squares, 2 snows. And then for the next layer, so the smaller of the 2 rectangles that we picked, these by the way are tattered lace rectangles, but it doesn't matter which, I'm using the smaller one of the 2 and cutting that out, but I'm also cutting out my little flag as well that we stamped, so we can get that all done in one go. And of course again there'll be 2 of each of these, and then that's all my die cutting done. So that's fab, you get it all done in one go. So now onto the stamping, and for the Christmas card, I know they're all Christmas cards, but I mean the one with the word Christmas on it, I want a matte and layered panel across it. So I've cut that out in the cream cardstock and then the gold that matches the Christmas die, and then I'm going to stamp on my stamped part of the sentiment. So I just positioned the word Christmas where I wanted it to be, and then added the stamp on the top so that I could make sure that it was in the right position relative to my die cut. Then I've taken this Brilliance gold. I didn't have one as an entire stamp, so I had to use that in the middle, but it worked fine. And don't forget, of course, we're doing 2 of each. So now we're on to my snow, and again this one's matte and layered, so you saw me cut these ones out with the dies to get the rectangles. So again I'm using the die itself just to help me position the sentiment, the stamp sentiment part of it. And for this I'm using some Stampin' Up grey ink. Now what I often do with stamping, and you'll see me do quite a lot because I've got the stamp platform, I can do this. When it's a sentiment, I really very lightly push down. I don't put a lot of pressure, because what you find is that it smushes the sentiment a little bit and the words get a bit less crisp. So if you do have a stamp platform, then go over a couple of times, do it lightly, and you'll find, I think, that you'll get a much crisper finish. Now this one is the first one that's onto the card base direct. These are the anagraphing card bases, and so this is a little nerve-wracking, and this is one where I've put together the sentiment, because in the stamp set you have different words, so you can add it how you want. So this one says in the magic of Christmas, so I took in, which was a separate word, the magic of was separate, and then Christmas was separate, and I added it together to create one word. And again, for all of these I've stamped them on 2 cards. Obviously I'm just only going to show you one because there's no point in showing you all of them. Now this one, again, I'm stamping directly onto the card. This one took me a while to fiddle around to get the stamps where I wanted them, and this is really the beauty of putting the die cut in position roughly, because you can kind of see how it looks, because I thought it would look right just across the top, but when I put it on I just thought it looked a bit I just didn't feel it worked. So again, I thought it'd be nice to switch it up, turn this to a portrait card rather than a landscape, and again I'm just doing a couple of stamps on this. Now you do obviously want to be careful. If you overdo it, then the colour becomes too dark or darker than you expect, but as long as you make sure you know that that's what it's going to be, you'll be fine. So for this one we've got stamps above and below, so again it's quite important to have your sentiment, die cut sentiment, in the right place so that you can get those positioned. And then we've got here another one, and I just thought this was a beautiful card. I know it's sort of not Christmassy with the pink, but I don't know, I just thought it worked with the gold as well. And again, I'm just using a Stampin' Up ink here, as the colour just really went well with the background, I felt. So now we're on to the actual die cuts and adhering them to the front of the card. So I thought I'd do a couple of different ways that you could stick these down. So the first way is where you take the adhesive, wet adhesive, you put it on a piece of paper, just kind of scribble it out, and then you lightly, well, I say dunk, but somehow that doesn't sound lightly, but anyway, you sort of pop them into the glue there so that it goes onto the back of your die cut. Now what you'll see is that I've got a bit of tissue, a bit of kitchen towel, and I'm just dabbing it down to stick it. That will just grab any excess adhesive as you're sticking it down, if any kind of comes out. The other way that I thought I'd show you is, and I didn't do a very good job on the camera, so hopefully you can catch this, is just using a glue pen, and you literally just write on the back and the adhesive goes where you want it, when it's got a very fine nib, exactly like a pen, so that's quite easy to put down. Although what I do find with both these methods, or less so with the first one, but is that if you're not careful you will get excess adhesive just coming out. So you see with this one I did a different way of doing the mopping up the adhesive. I used the kitchen towel and pressed down onto that sentiment, and it would then again mop up any excess. I was trying to think of a better word, but it really is the best way. It just kind of absorbs that excess adhesive that comes out. And the other thing I really do like to do is if I'm sort of like a word like this that can get moved, these words can kind of twist if you're not careful. If you pop it down and sort of lightly put it down and then use your roller there, it just really sticks it nice and firmly. Sometimes with the wet adhesive I'll leave it just a few seconds to start to go off and then do it, because it then doesn't squish the adhesive out, but it just sticks it down. So that always works really well. And then we've got the Christmas one here, just then sticking across the banner, and I want to obviously with this one put it together. So for this I'm just putting some tape on the back here, I didn't need wet adhesive. It's a light card and it can stick really nicely using the tape onto this beautiful textured gold. This is the same gold as I cut the sentiment from, and it just mats and layers and just adds a little bit of something to that matte and layer. And then when it sticks onto the front of the card, it just I think it just adds something nice. And the card's gorgeous. It's got this beautiful gold foil pattern across the whole of it. This was these cards were a set that I got from Anna Griffin. I'm sure she does loads of them like this still. I don't suppose she has this specific set, but it has all different card fronts in, and that's it with the envelopes, and it's just super cool. Now for the actual sticking onto the card, because we had 2 layers of cardstock now, and it was going onto a foiled card, I wanted to be sure it would stick, so I used a wet adhesive, but this time I used my construction glue because it's super strong and it really goes off quickly. Now you can see that I deliberately made my panel too wide, but obviously what you want to do is make sure very carefully that you do center your word to the card, because you might have put the word slightly off center on your panel, and then obviously just cut the excess off the ends once the glue has gone off a bit. So then our last one is this beautiful, I think this has to be my favorite cardstock, this beautiful shimmery foil. I have to say I can't remember where I got it, but I will try and find out. I have a feeling it was one of these Create and Craft specials that they did. Now for this one I used again a different type of adhesive method for you. Obviously I can't show it because it's too difficult. It has to be done in a box, like an old spare cardboard box, but I used spray adhesive. But you could see that was really simple. You just stuck it down. The only thing is I am not a massive fan of spray adhesive. Now this could be that I just haven't found the right one, but I have been using Crafter's Companion, so I would have thought that was a good make. But if you guys have got any better suggestions, then I would be grateful, because generally I have found with the adhesive, even the spray adhesives, even the ones that say they're permanent, they just seem to lift pretty quickly, and I've not been impressed with them. And I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. I can't see how you can. I literally am putting it in the box, spraying the back of it lightly, and then I've tried heavily, I've tried in the middle, I've tried all different ways, and it just always seems to lift quite quickly compared to other glues. And anyway, going back to the card, you could see there I was just matting and layering the 2 layers together once I'd put the sentiment on the front, and then adding the whole lot onto the front of my card. And I just love this glittery cardstock. I really, really do. It's so pretty. Absolutely gorgeous, and it's even more glittery in life. And there we are done. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 12 cards here, and they were done pretty quickly actually. I mean, obviously the video has been edited and made a lot faster, but it was a relatively quick process. I went through the box, I picked out the card bases. If you've got something like this, that makes it a lot quicker, because you've got card bases that have already done a lot of the work for you, because they've got what appears to be mats and layers, but they haven't. And I find, certainly if you sell cards in particular, people like something that gives the appearance of dimension but doesn't actually have the dimension, because obviously that, if you're posting them, they cost a lot more to do that at Christmas time. Well, at any time, but at Christmas, obviously when you're sending so many, that's quite important. Obviously if it's like a one-off birthday card, you might think, oh well, that's okay. But as I was saying, literally all I did was pick out my card bases, pick out the dies. Well, I had the set, so I knew I just was going to use all of them. I found the cardstocks for the dies that complemented the card bases. I then die cut everything. I then stamped everything. I then adhered the dies to the front of the cards or the layers, put any layers together that I had to put together, and then it was done. I mean, you could get quite a lot like this done. Now, if you were sending them to a lot of different people, you could do a batch of exactly the same card like that, have a Merry Christmas one, for example, or Peace on Earth, where you've got the card base that is really, there's nothing to it. You've got a basic card base that's patterned, and then you just add your sentiment and stamp. You could just really be churning that out. And it's important with batch making to do each section, like do all the die cutting together, do all the stamping in one, because otherwise you're picking the die machine up and down, and that's what takes the time. So it's important to do that, and just keep organized with making sure you keep the bits together that go together. So keep your cards sheets as well. When I started off, I put the card bases, the card sheets that I wanted, the ink, all in one pile, so I knew that was that pile for the green ones or whatever, and that way I kept on top of exactly what went with what. So I hope that's been enjoyable. I hope it's been helpful, because I know at Christmas you really do want to do batch making, so I hope that's been helpful to see some cards that are simple to make and hopefully quick to make, and will give you some ideas. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hop on over to the blog post, and of course on both the website and on YouTube. I would love it if you would subscribe to one or the other, and if you could give it a thumbs up here on YouTube, I would be grateful, because that tells YouTube that you like it, and it will then pass that around to other people that like things like you do, and that helps me get more views, which helps me produce more videos for you. So thanks again, and I will see you next week. Bye for now. Bye.